What is up? It's Tom. We're going to talk about some of the recent Twins news that's been out there. Yes, there has been news. You know, some of these are related to now former Twins, but some things going down in the news and some rumors swirling and things like that. But I just want to call out, you know, it obviously has been a quiet offseason. You know, and if you haven't been paying close attention, maybe you're wrapped up in things for the holidays or year end, or the Vikings having a great season has really swept you off your feet. Or I know the Wild are playing really well too. A lot of other stuff going on. And again, the Twins haven't actually made really any moves. And we talked about the Rule 5 guy who's intriguing. But other than that, really nothing going on. And the stance I'm taking so far is I feel like I will be feeling secure as long as that's the case. And, you know, I think the biggest news out there is that the Ishbia brothers are looking into buying the Twins. That seems like a very legit thing that's developing. How far that goes is yet to be seen, but maybe we will hear, maybe that will actually go down this offseason, and that would mark a massive thing for the Minnesota Twins. But as things stand, I'm pretty comfortable with I no news is good news vibe. The music to my ears that I've heard the most this offseason that's just put me really in a good mood is that Royce Lewis is right. Dan Hayes of The Athletic talked to Royce Lewis. I think the winter meetings weren't far from where Royce is based, so Dan went and talked to him. Here's one of the encouraging quotes in that article from, again, The Athletic. Seriously, should consider subscribing if you aren't. Royce saying, "I take ground balls at short, second, and third, all three, because I'm trying to be available. If second base needs to happen, it makes sense. That's fine. I could play wherever, really, as long as it's on the dirt. It's a good thing for us." So that is a huge kind of change of tune from what Royce was saying toward the end of last season about potentially playing second base. And you know, there's a lot of people that kind of took that as him being selfish, and there was some other things that he said were red flags, which I actually covered in this edition of the Twinzine. Put together a gatefold in the center that had some quotes from both Royce and Carlos Correa at the end of the year. But, you know, kind of in the actual fold part, one of the things I pointed out was, here's hoping the offseason helps cool off any friction there may have been and the team is ready to embrace a fresh start in 2025. Well, that certainly sounds like the case with Royce Lewis. And there was a lot in that article. It went through a lot of stuff, and basically the tone from Royce is that, you know, he was going through some other stuff at that time that they asked him to play some second base, and that he really was hoping to focus on that other stuff and not have to focus on also trying to learn how to play second base in addition to all those things. Again, hoping that distance was going to sort of alleviate some of the frictions. I think that has definitely happened, and Royce Lewis seems pointed in the right direction. In addition to talking about his future defensive home, Dan also talked to him about his routine, and it sounds like Royce has a brand new routine that he's working with this offseason. He feels better than he has in a long time in an offseason. It sounds like he maybe has shed a little weight or is just lighter on his feet. Not sure which, but you know, it seems like Royce is really reevaluating a lot of stuff and trying to learn what it takes to get through a full season, and you know, is open to moving around in the field. So that whole article just really was like a breath of fresh air. And there was a lot of uncertainty in my mind regarding Royce Lewis and how he was kind of thinking about things, how he's going to approach things. This is one of the most positive guys I think I've ever seen in sports, so I'm not too surprised that Royce has set his mentality right. But just the fact that he struggled really for the first time in the majors that we'd seen it. He's getting older too. Maybe he's a little bit more mature, and maybe that leads to, you know, a more jaded viewpoint. Maybe some of that positivity sheds away when you get to this age compared to when he was a younger man. But it's really encouraging to see that he certainly sounds like he's taking this on with a positive approach, and with an approach where this is a fresh start. And on the Twins' part, I know Rocco Baldelli has said, you know, they hope to know what their plans are before too long. But yeah, Royce Lewis, maybe he's at third, maybe he's at second. It's going to depend on what else happens with the Twins offseason. So Royce is prepared for that. As long as the outfield is out of the question. He doesn't want anything to do with the outfield, it sounds like, which is cool. But he's open to second base, which is great to hear, and he's working out there a little bit. So that was really the breath of fresh air. The thing that sort of made me panic a little bit was the next one. Jeff Passan of ESPN has reported that, quote, the Twins have listened on right-hander Pablo López, and if free agent pitching prices remain stratospheric, perhaps they'll go beyond the listening stage, So, yeah, we'd kind of heard, I think it was in early December, there were some things out there saying that the Pablo López has come up, but the asking price was kind of so high that teams didn't really think he was very realistic. And it sort of what I gather reading between the lines of this quote here, I think maybe teams are coming around to, that asking price is actually pretty fair, considering what starting pitchers are getting in the free agent market and how much Pablo López has left on his contract. And actually that extension really has only looked better since it's been signed. So Pablo López, keep in mind, the Twins are pretty open and forward about listening on everybody. So I would say at this point, Pablo López, this is something to be aware of, that this is happening. But I don't think this means it's all that likely for Pablo to get traded, which is related to the third point I want to relay, is that per Lavelli Neal III of the Star Tribune, a Carlos Correa trade, which was discussed in these kind of similar terms earlier this offseason, is unlikely. He says trading Correa is very unlikely to happen. So I know a lot of people had seen that rumor out there and reacted pretty strongly to it. So I would say both Pablo and Carlos are probably more in the Luis Arraez trade logic, to where, if you give us, obviously the Twins acquired Pablo López in that trade. So if you give us a fairly comparable major league piece and a couple of minor league pieces that look nice, sort of if you go beyond what our asking price is, I guess we would say yes, is sort of how I would view it as a Twins fan, thinking of what scenario would be that the Twins might trade Pablo López or Carlos Correa if there's a team out there that just decides, in their team build, and they're like, we are a Pablo López away, or we are a Carlos Correa away, and is willing to give up more than their value, then the Twins will trade those guys. But how likely is that? Unlikely. It's not that the Twins are interested in offloading any of these guys, from what I gather. So, and if we think about it in the zoom out to the bigger picture of the sale, I mentioned how the Pablo López contract looks better and better all the time. I honestly think the Carlos Correa contract is completely reasonable. In Major League Baseball money, zooming out of the Twins' money situation currently, I don't think these are quote-unquote bad contracts in any way that the Twins should feel motivated to get themselves out of. And, I think, in the discussion of a potential sale, these players are marketable and should be seen as assets, if anything. If I'm, an Ishbia brother considering buying the Twins and I see that these guys are on the roster, yes, they're going to get paid quite a bit. What we know about how the Ishbia brothers have approached the Suns, they don't care anyway. But let's take them out of the picture. I'd say any ownership group should be looking at the Twins and seeing López and Correa as long-term pieces being a positive to the organization rather than something they'd rather get themselves out of, put it that way. Item number 4, in case you missed it, Max Kepler signed with the Philadelphia Phillies a 1-year, $10 million deal. Coming out, kind of a really tough time for Max to reach free agency, coming off one of his worst years in a while, was injured. He actually underwent off-season surgery. The interesting thing here is he's expected to play left field for the Phillies. I guess that discussion never really came up with the Twins. We always heard about center field and how Max really didn't prefer to play center field. Really was comfortable in right field. I don't know that they ever asked him to play left field. But that's just interesting to know that he's moving away from his, kind of nookie-blanky right field and moving over to left field. And I think, going to Philly is a great destination. That's obviously a team that's been competitive for a real long time, and a nice spot for Max to land where he can kind of be more of a complimentary guy. So, happy for Max. Expected him to leave. No shock that he's no longer a Twin. Carlos Santana, though, just earlier today, announced that he is signing with Cleveland, back to Cleveland. I think this is his third stint with Cleveland. Went back in the time machine and got an old picture of him in the Cleveland Indians garb. Signed a 1-year, $12 million deal. I was hoping that the Twins could find a way to make this work, but now that we know what his market was, we got like $5.5-ish million last year, something around there. I figured he would get a more, but this much more. I'm kind of surprised that his market was this much stronger. 1-year, $12 million deal. If I had known he was going to sign for that, I would have assumed for a while that the Twins, given their current self-imposed payroll restrictions, wouldn't be stretching to that number. So bummer to see Carlos go. It's nice for him. He's getting paid and he's going to put to a place that he's comfortable, but it sucks he's going to Cleveland. They traded Josh Naylor, though, today to Arizona. So Josh Naylor's an interesting, dynamic, power-hitting guy that I think kind of added something interesting to their lineup that he's gone. So it's not that Cleveland just has totally just taken a step forward. Also just stings to be in a situation where there's a guy who, at $12 million I'm looking at and saying I didn't realistically expect the Twins could get to that number, and Cleveland can. Not that Cleveland's going to spend more than the Twins this upcoming season. That's probably not going to be the case. Hard to tell. They're always one of the cheaper teams in baseball. They do a good job. Not taking, obviously the defending division champions went to the ALCS. Hard to really rip on their approach to team building when that's the case. They've done a nice job. But, Carlos Santana to Cleveland. Twins are going to be, in a situation to potentially keep looking. There's been a lot of first basemen that went. Maybe it's a situation to where you just say, all right, well, we've got all these infielders. Maybe we just make Miranda a full-time first baseman, or maybe we make Miranda and Edouard Julien a full-time first baseman, or maybe you do pull in a free agent, but it's sort of a thing where you leave multiple avenues open for first base. I don't know. But either way, no matter what it's going to be, it's not going to be Carlos Santana. So best of luck for him as he continues his career, approaching 40 years old. So that's another kind of reason where you maybe don't feel too bent out of shape as a Twins fan. As good as he was last season, that doesn't mean there's any kind of guarantee that's going to carry forward. He is a guy that takes very good care of himself. So he's got that going for him. But we shall see how that works out. Thanks for checking this one out. Again, just kind of wanted to relay a bunch of news just in case you missed it and share some of my thoughts on that. And we will talk again soon.